Hey guys, and welcome to Gwent, the Witcher card game. My name is Jaggerous, and today I'm going to be reviewing the new Skellige cards for the upcoming Gwent expansion, Master Mirror, which releases on the 30th of June. And if you want to see the upcoming cards for yourselves, there will be a link in the description below for you guys to go and check out the cards for yourselves. So, Skellige, what's happening? Well, let's start things off with the new evolving card. Every faction is getting a new evolving card. This card changes between rounds. So in round 1 it has one form, in round 2 it has a different form, and in round 3 it will transform once again. So we have Harald an Crate for Skellige. Deploy, play a bronze warrior from your graveyard and damage it by 2. So this is a graveyard resurrect. I feel like the round 1 variant, you're really not going to be playing all that much because how often do you have units in your graveyard in round 1? Also, the card gets stronger with each round. So this form is, it exists. I just don't see this getting played particularly. Then we have Harald Warmonger. Deploy, play a bronze warrior from your graveyard, so you don't damage it. And this is where this card, I think, becomes quite powerful because you have targeted resurrection for warriors, and having access to your graveyard is always useful. Then you have Devotion. At the start of round, while in hand or deck, transform. So this means if you have no neutral cards in your deck, then this will happen, and it transforms into Harald the Cripple, which has Vale. Vale means you cannot apply statuses to this card. Play a bronze warrior from your graveyard. Whenever you play a warrior, damage a random enemy unit by 1, ignoring its armor. So he has piercing, which is quite interesting. So I think having a resurrect in round 3 is always useful. These two forms seem very similar, and I don't feel like you're gaining a huge amount with the third form, although this does become quite useful with cards like Wild Boar of the Sea, for example. So as a finisher, you know, if you're using this as an engine, it's actually quite good. In terms of your warriors, you have things like greatswords that you can resurrect. There's a bunch of new warriors being added to the game as well. So, you know, if there's key warrior cards in the game, this card becomes incredibly powerful, I think. And having resurrection is really useful. On top of that, we now also have targeted draw for our Skellige cards, right? Our Skellige warriors. So we have Blood Eagle, which is the new Skellige Echo card. Now, an Echo card at the end of the round will move from your graveyard to the top of your deck, but become doomed. So effectively, you can play this card twice. It's a raid, damage an enemy unit by 2, then play a warrior from your deck with a provision cost of 8 or less. If you Deathblow, you can play any warrior from your deck, so targeted draw for warriors. And if you have Bloodthirst 3, so if you have 3 damaged opponents, you will always trigger the Deathblow. So this is targeted draw for warriors, and Skellige has a lot of good warriors. You have targeted draw for your bronzes in order to set up your evolving Harald the Cripple. You also then have draw for just gold warriors, and there are some cards there that are really useful for that. So you can target draw your gold cards, and Skellige really did need a tutor, so having this Blood Eagle card and the ability to play it twice I think is incredibly impactful for the faction. So looking at bronzes, we have War of Clans. Damage an enemy unit by 2. Deathblow, play a 4 provision cost warrior from your graveyard and give it doomed. Devotion, always trigger the Deathblow. So if you have only Skellige cards, you deal 2 damage and you res a warrior. So lots of warrior targeting resurrects coming into the faction, and I think this is quite scary. I think, you know, if you have decks that focus around specific cards, this could be incredibly impactful. But on the flip side, Skellige does suffer from graveyard grief, so, you know, if you're getting your graveyard griefed, then that can be quite problematic. Okay, so if we keep going here, we have a new warrior. Look at this, an Crate Raiders. Veteran. Order, damage a unit by 2. Bloodthirst 3, gain Zeal. So this card is a veteran, which means each round it will gain 1 base strength. So on round 1 it's a 4, round 2 it's a 5, round 3 it's a 6, progressively stronger. And I believe they still boost from your graveyard, so I think if you play this earlier and then resurrect it, you will still see value that way. You damage unit by 2, if you have Bloodthirster you gain Zeal, so it's not a bad 5 provision card, but it's not incredibly exciting either, I would say. I don't know. We'll have to kind of see. I do like this new Veterans tag, though. And it is a pirate, so you can make a little Hammond pirate pocket with it if you wish. Okie dokie. So next up, if we go down here, we have the Drummond Villager. Deploy. Give Bleeding 4 to the unit to the right, then give Bleeding 4 to an enemy unit. So you do need something to target with this. You do need to be able to apply bleeding to one of your own units. And then you give Bleeding 4 to an enemy unit. But Skellige does have some benefits from damaging its own units. For example, you have the unit where they get Berserk, right? As they get damaged, they get stronger. You could also play this with something like Harald the cripple, where you can put bleeding on the skulls and then put bleeding on your opponent. So a decent 4 provision unit. And again, you have the ability to resurrect this should you wish. The other thing is you can always purify bleeding. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe if you put this next to a Vale unit, because Vale units cannot get statuses, I would imagine you can put this next to a Vale and not give it bleeding because it can't have bleeding, but still apply it to the opponent. I'm not 100% sure on that, though. This is something we'd have to kind of test when we play the cards. But if that's the case, this is actually, you know, a very powerful warrior and gives you options to really, well, damage your opponent and gain value from a low provision card, which is quite powerful. So moving on, we then have the Twirsek Invader, Vale Veteran. So this card is just getting stronger every turn. Starts off as a 5, becomes a 6, becomes a 7. And again, it's got Vale, right? So I think if we slot this Drummond Villager next to the Twirsek Invader, we can then apply bleeding. And again, they're quite cheap provision cards, so you have the option of resurrecting them. And you get decent values from your bronze package, so that's pretty good. Then we have the Drummond Berserker. At the end of your turn, damage self and a random enemy unit by 1. Berserk 2, transform into a bear abomination. So he's going to slowly kill himself and your opponent. And then at the end of the turn, he's going to then transform, if he gets down to 2, into a 6 strength bear abomination, which already exists in the game. So this is another thing you could put bleeding on. And then the bleeding would, you know, obviously dissipate as he transforms. But you have to be a little bit wary of him getting removed. But it is another option for that. I don't know how I feel about this card. I think it could be a little bit better, all things considered. But it's okay, right? So as we keep going down the list, we're getting into our golds now. And here is Hiyurka, I think her name is. Hiyurka Drummond. Vale Zeal. Order. Split 3 damage randomly between enemy units on a row. At the end of the turn, if order is not used, damage a random enemy unit by 1. So you play this, it damages random enemies by 1, it sets up Bloodthirst, it sets up Wildborn of the Sea, and then you have the option of using it to put 3 damage randomly between units. This is kind of like, and she's a warrior as well, right? So you can always resurrect her, you can target draw her and stuff. And actually I think this is quite nice in the warrior package. It kind of does a similar thing to the longship, right? The Ancrate longship. In that it's damaging a unit. That damages what you play. This damages random things, but you're still getting damage onto the board, which I think is pretty useful in Skellige. So I could see this card fitting into quite a few decks, actually. Next up, we have Turkv Twirsek Veteran. Deploy, give an enemy unit Rupture. Now, after a quick double check on exactly how Rupture works, Rupture is a status. So you apply this to an enemy unit, and then at the end of your opponent's turn, the unit will take damage equal to its power. So the unit just kind of explodes, it ruptures, it dies. But your opponent does have an opportunity to respond to this. So if it's monsters, they can consume it, you can purify it. But this is a very powerful toll removal option. This card also has Veteran, so it's going to be getting stronger each round. And again, it is a warrior, so you have that kind of synergy with warriors. And I think this is a very interesting removal card. It's a little bit different from something like Morkvarg, for example. Bear in mind that you can't last play this turn because it happens at the end of your opponent's turn. So you'd have to play this like as your second to last card. So that's something to be aware of in terms of this card's power. And I believe that actually does it for the Skellige cards, except for one that hasn't been revealed yet. So let me know what you guys think of the whole warrior synergy in the new veterans tag in the description below. I feel like this is a archetype that's only going to get stronger as more and more warriors are added to the game. And having targeted draw and these targeted resurrects are really useful for Skellige. Skellige also does have a very decent package, so I feel like you are quite capable of playing a Skellige devotion list compared to maybe some of the other factions. Same with Syndicate, actually. But yeah, that is the Skellige set review. Let me know what you guys think in the description below if there's anything you're particularly excited about. And as always, you can subscribe to the channel for more content. If you enjoyed the video, maybe leave a like. You can find me on Twitter at Jaggerous. Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely day, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next video.